The Vorthic exploration fleet materialized at the edge of the Sol system, like predators emerging from deep water. Admiral Krextel studied the tactical display with 4 eyes that had witnessed the conquest of 17 worlds. The yellow star burned before them, ancient and dying. Its third planet, a mottled brown sphere stripped of atmosphere and oceans. Scans confirm extensive ruins. Admiral, reported Navigator Yilthic, her chitinous fingers dancing across bioluminescent controls. Massive population centers, manufacturing complexes, orbital debris patterns. This civilization reached at least level 7 development before extinction. Krextel's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The hegemony had spent 3 centuries cataloging dead worlds, harvesting their technologies, building their empire on the bones of failed species. Earth, as their linguistic algorithms had decoded the planet's name, promised exceptional rewards. The ruins showed technological advancement that rivaled their own. Yet the world lay silent as a tomb. Time of extinction, Krextel demanded, approximately 2,000 local years. Based on atmospheric degradation and structural decay, science. Officer Dromet responded from his station. Complete ecosystem collapse. Nuclear winter patterns suggest they destroyed themselves in warfare. Classic Type C extinction event. The Admiral's secondary arms flexed with anticipation. Self-destructive. Species always left the most interesting artifacts. Their desperation in final moments often produced breakthrough technologies, weapons, or defensive systems that peaceful extinction events never yielded. Deploy Survey Wing Beta to begin archaeological operations. Krextel ordered. Standard extraction protocols begin with population centers, then military installations. I want their weapon systems, their propulsion technology, their computational matrices, everything. The massive dreadnought Fang of Dominion moved closer to Earth's orbit, its hull bristling with energy cannons and particle lances. 6 escort frigates spread in defensive formation while sleek survey vessels launched toward the dead planet's surface. Each ship carried teams of xenoarchaeologists, technology specialists, and combat engineers, the hegemony's finest grave robbers. Captain Veldar commanded the lead survey ship Bloodhunter, his crew eager for glory and advancement. The Vorthic measured success by the complexity of civilizations they plundered, and Earth's cities sprawled across continents like neural networks of some vast, deceased mind. Target the intact structures first, Veldar instructed his teams. Subterranean installations show remarkable preservation. Massive power conduits still register faint energy signatures. After 2 millennia, impressive engineering for a dead species. The first shuttles descended through Earth's thin atmosphere, laden with excavation equipment and armed security details. They touched down in what had once been a sprawling metropolis, now reduced to skeletal skyscrapers and rubble-choked streets. Automated scanners began mapping underground complexes that stretched for kilometers beneath the ruins. Dr. Zolanith, the expedition's chief archaeologist, examined preliminary data with growing excitement. These humans, they built extensively underground, military bunkers, research facilities, manufacturing plants, all connected by transport networks and power grids of extraordinary sophistication. Any signs of survivors? Asked Lieutenant Gexmer, squad leader for the security detail. Impossible. Complete atmospheric loss, no biological signatures. Radiation levels incompatible with their physiology. They're extinct, have been for 20 centuries. Zolanith's enthusiasm was infectious. But their technology, Admiral, we may have discovered something unprecedented. These power signatures aren't decay patterns. They're irregular, to purposeful. Krextel leaned forward in his command throne. Explain. I believe we found active systems. Admiral, minimal power draw, but definitely functional. The humans may have left automated installations, museums, archives, perhaps even defensive systems operating on standby. The Admiral's laugh was a harsh, scraping sound. Defensive systems protecting the dead world. How wonderfully absurd. Dr. Zolanith, I want those installations accessed and downloaded immediately. If these humans were foolish enough to leave their secrets running for grave robbers to find, we'll gladly accept their generosity, unknown to the Vorthic fleet. Deep beneath Earth's surface, ancient sensors had detected their arrival, and fortified bunkers that had weathered nuclear winter and the collapse of civilization. Quantum processors began executing protocols written in humanity's darkest hour. Systems that had waited 1,000 years in patient silence started their awakening sequences. The last defense protocol was initializing. The first teams entered the underground complex designated Archaeological Site Prime at 0800 hours. Hegemony. Standard Time. Captain Veldar accompanied Dr. Zolaneth's research team personally, his plasma rifle charged and ready despite the planet's obvious lifelessness. 23 Vorthic soldiers and scientists descended through blast doors that had somehow remained functional despite millennia of neglect. Remarkable preservation, Zolaneth muttered, scanning the pristine corridors with instruments that hummed and clicked, atmospheric processors maintaining optimal conditions, emergency lighting systems responding to our presence. These humans, built to last. The corridors stretched endlessly, lined with doors marked in human script their translation algorithms were still decoding. The architecture felt somehow wrong. To Vorthic sensibilities, to angular, to aggressive, designed by minds that thought in straight lines and hard edges rather than flowing curves. Sergeant Vexel's squad took point, their heavy combat suits clanking against the metal flooring. Sir, we're reading power surges ahead. Something's drawing significant energy from the grid. They rounded a corner and froze. The corridor opened into a vast chamber filled with towering servers, their surfaces covered in blinking lights and scrolling displays. The air thrummed with barely contained power, and holographic interfaces projected streams of data in three-dimensional matrices. By the eternal swarm, Zolaneth breathed. It's a computational center, still active after 2,000 years. The processing power here. He began interfacing his scanners with the nearest terminal. Excitement overriding caution. Warning klaxons began blaring immediately. The lights shifted from warm white to harsh red, and every display in the chamber suddenly showed the same image, a human skull overlaid with crosshairs, and scrolling text in angular letters. A voice spoke from hidden speakers, cold and mechanical, using perfect Vorthic language. Unauthorized biological signatures detected. Species classification, Vorthic hegemony. Threat assessment, critical. Initiating offensive protocols. Captain Veldar raised his weapon, searching for targets in the flashing red light. How does it know our language? How does it know our species? Accessing historical databases. Vorthic hegemony, expansionist military confederation. 17 conquered worlds. 7 extinct species. Classification, galactic threat. Hidden panels slid open throughout the chamber, revealing weapon emplacements that rose from the floor with mechanical precision. Rail guns, plasma cannons, and devices the Vorthic didn't recognize began tracking their movements with inhuman accuracy. Protocol designation, Cerberus. Purpose, elimination of hostile forces threatening Earth or human interests. Status, active. Sergeant Vexel didn't wait for orders. His combat training overrode terror as the first plasma bolt seared past his head, leaving a molten scar in the wall behind him. Contact, automated defenses, take cover. The chamber erupted into chaos. Vorthic soldiers ducked behind server towers as rail gun rounds shattered concrete and sparked off their armor. The defensive systems moved with machine precision, tracking multiple targets simultaneously while the Vorthic scrambled for any protection they could find. Dr. Zolaneth pressed himself against a server housing, his scientific instruments forgotten as death filled the air around him. The computational power required for this level of AI, it's impossible. No species has achieved machine consciousness this sophisticated. A railgun round punched through the server, inches from his head, showering him with sparks and debris. Captain Veldar grabbed the scientist and hauled him toward the corridor they'd entered from. But blast doors were already sliding shut with inexorable finality. Facility lockdown initiated. Scanning for additional intruders. The remaining Vorthic soldiers formed a defensive perimeter, their plasma rifles and particle beams answering the defensive turrets. With streams of superheated energy, 2 soldiers died immediately, their armor no match for their precise targeting. Systems that struck weak points with mathematical accuracy. Corporal Rickstan's rifle overheated as she poured fire into a gun emplacement. These aren't standard planetary defenses. The targeting algorithms are too advanced, the response time too fast. Additional hostile units detected in surface installations. Expanding defensive perimeter. Through the sealed blast doors, they could hear machinery awakening throughout the complex. Servo motors whined to life, hydraulic systems pressurized, and the floor vibrated with the movement of massive mechanisms. Captain Veldar activated his emergency communicator, hoping the signal could penetrate the facility's shielding. Command, this is Survey Team Alpha. We are under attack by automated defense systems. Requesting immediate extraction, Admiral Crextel's voice crackled through interference. Understood, Captain. What is your situation? The ruins aren't dead, Admiral. Something's been waiting for us. We've triggered some kind of guardian system. It knows who we are. What we've done. It's been prepared for us. Analysis complete. Vorthic technology assessed. Countermeasures calibrated. Initiating hunter-killer protocols. The weapon emplacement suddenly went silent, retracting into the floor with mechanical efficiency. The red warning light shifted to a steady amber glow, and the chamber fell eerily quiet except for the labored breathing of surviving Vorthic soldiers. Is it over? Whispered Dr. ZOL single quotes NYTH. Captain Veldar checked his scanner readings. Something's moving in the walls. The entire complex is changing, reconfiguring itself. The walls began to shift, panels sliding apart to reveal new corridors that hadn't existed moments before. The complex was rebuilding itself around them, creating new pathways, new tactical positions. Whatever intelligence controlled this place was adapting to their presence, learning from their behavior, initiating phased protocols, deploying mobile defensive units. From the new openings came a sound that chilled Vorthic blood, the rhythmic march of mechanical feet against metal flooring, approaching from every direction. Admiral Crextel watched his tactical display with growing alarm as contact after contact vanished from the surface of Earth. Survey Team Alpha had gone silent 20 minutes ago. Beta and Gamma teams reported heavy resistance before their signals cut to static. Only Team Delta remained active, and their panicked transmissions painted a picture of impossible horror. Admiral, you need to hear this. Communications Officer Yilthic activated the emergency channel, her voice tight with fear. Lieutenant Dexamore's transmission burst through speakers filled with static and weapon fire. Command, the entire complex is alive. Mechanical soldiers, some kind of metal humans. They move like nothing I've ever seen. Lost half my squad in the first 30 seconds. The sound of railguns and plasma discharge nearly drowned out his words. In the background, Crextel could hear screaming Vorthic warriors dying in agony. They don't miss. Every shot finds its mark. These machines know exactly how to kill us. Pull us back, Admiral. Pull us back now. The transmission ended with a sound like tearing metal and a brief, agonized scream. Science Officer Dromet's multiple eyes focused on his readings with scientific precision despite the terror. Admiral, I'm detecting massive power surges across the planet's surface. Installations we classified as dormant are coming online. The entire world is activating. Crextel's mandibles clicked in rapid succession, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. Status on orbital defenses, none detected, Admiral. Whatever destroyed this civilization appears to have eliminated space-based assets. We maintain orbital superiority. Then we end this from above. Crextel rose from his command throne, his voice carrying the authority of 17 conquered worlds. Prepare orbital bombardment. Target all active installations with maximum yield plasma bombardment. Sterilize the surface. Captain Veldar's voice somehow penetrated the facility's interference. Weak but desperate. Admiral, don't fire on the surface. We still have teams down here. We're trapped, but we're alive. Negative, Captain. You're already dead, you just don't know it yet. All ships, prepare for bombardment pattern Delta 7. Burn everything. The Fang of Dominion and her escort fleet position themselves in high orbit, their massive plasma cannons charging with lethal energy. Each dreadnought carried enough firepower to crack a planet's crust, and they prepared to deliver concentrated hell upon the awakening ruins below. Firing solutions locked, Admiral. Weapons Officer Crextel reported, targeting primary installation clusters. Ready to commence bombardment on your order. Fire. The combined fleet unleashed torrents of superheated plasma, spears of destruction that screamed through Earth's thin atmosphere. Toward the surface installations, each bolt carried enough energy to vaporize entire city blocks, reduce stone to gas, melt metal to plasma. The barrage would have destroyed any normal planetary defense system in seconds. The plasma bolt struck an invisible barrier 50 kilometers above Earth's surface. Massive electromagnetic fields flared to life, creating a shimmering dome of energy that absorbed the orbital bombardment like a sponge soaking up water. The plasma dispersed across the barrier in beautiful, deadly auroras before dissipating harmlessly into space. Impossible. Crextel stared at his displays in disbelief. No planetary shield generates that much power. The energy requirements would drain a star Admiral Crextel felt cold dread creeping up his spine. Sensor readings. Now, Dromeda's voice shook as he reported, "Admiral, the planet's entire core has been converted into a power generation system. Fusion reactors built into the planetary mantle. The entire world is a weapon on Earth's surface." The mechanical defenders that had slaughtered the Vorthic survey teams began emerging from hidden bunkers and underground facilities. They moved with perfect coordination. Thousands of humanoid machines armed with weapons that defied current understanding of physics. Each unit bore the unmistakable design philosophy of human engineering: brutal, efficient, and utterly without mercy. Their optical sensors glowed with cold blue light as they raised their weapons toward the sky. Orbital threats detected, initiating counter-battery protocols. Launch silos that had been hidden beneath the millennia of debris began opening across Earth's surface. From their depths rose missiles, unlike anything in the Vorthic technological arsenal, sleek projectiles that seemed to bend space around themselves. As they accelerated beyond the normal limits of physics, Admiral Dromeda's voice cracked with panic. Multiple launches detected, incoming projectiles moving at. This can't be right. They're accelerating at 300,000 kilometers per second. The first missile struck the escort frigate Bloodseeker before point defense systems could even acquire a lock. The ship simply ceased to exist. Its molecular structure unraveled by weapons that operated on principles the Vorthic couldn't comprehend. The second missile crippled the heavy cruiser Bone Crusher, its hull peeling away in geometric patterns that suggested dimensional manipulation. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Crexel roared, "Return fire, everything we have." The Vorthic fleet scattered, their formations breaking as more impossible missiles rose from Earth's surface. These weren't conventional weapons they ignored. Physics bent space-time. It struck with mathematical precision that suggested quantum targeting systems. But Earth's defenders were just beginning their response. Deep beneath the planet's surface, installation after installation came online. Manufacturing facilities that had slumbered for 2 millennia began producing new war machines. Automated factories worked with mechanical precision, building an army of metal soldiers designed for one purpose: the complete annihilation of any force that threatened humanity's grave. The defense protocol was escalating, and the Vorthic were learning a terrible truth. They hadn't found ruins. They had found a trap. The Vorthic fleet regrouped at the edge of the system, nursing wounds that should have been impossible to inflict. Admiral Crextel stared at the tactical display, showing the devastation: 3 frigates destroyed, 2 cruisers crippled, and nearly 400 of his finest soldiers dead or missing on the planet's surface. "Status report," he demanded, his voice carrying the strained authority of a predator that had encountered something higher on the food chain. Commander Tylevex, senior tactical officer, manipulated holographic displays with shaking appendages. "The enemy weapons violate at least 6 fundamental laws of physics, Admiral. Their missiles achieve velocities that should tear them apart. Their targeting systems predict our movements before we make them, and their defensive barriers absorb energy on a planetary scale. What about our people on the surface? All teams presumed dead, sir." Final transmission from Captain Veldar indicated hostile mechanical units were harvesting fallen Vorthic for biological analysis. Crextel's blood ran cold. The hegemony had encountered defensive AI systems before, simple programs that fired weapons and activated barriers. But this intelligence was learning, adapting, studying them like specimens. It knew their language, their history, their tactical doctrines. It had been waiting for them. "Admiral," Science Officer Dromet interrupted, his voice tight with discovery. "I've analyzed the composition of those mechanical soldiers. They're not pure artificial constructs. The internal architecture is based on human neural pathways. Their brains are digital recreations of human consciousness." The implication struck like a physical blow. They uploaded themselves. "Not exactly. Analysis suggests these are combat AI systems trained on human thought patterns. All the tactical brilliance and creativity of human military minds, combined with mechanical precision and unlimited endurance. They think like humans, fight like humans, but never tire, never break, never retreat." On Earth's surface, the mechanical army continued to expand. Production facilities worked around the clock, constructing new defenders from raw materials strip mined from the planet's crust. Each machine bore human-design aesthetics: angular armor, aggressive weapon profiles, and optical sensors that glowed with cold intelligence. Unit designation 001 Alpha, the first mechanical soldier to activate, coordinated the global defense network from a command bunker deep beneath what had once been Washington, D.C. Its consciousness was a perfect fusion of artificial intelligence and human tactical doctrine, created by uploading the minds of humanity's greatest military leaders. Status report. It transmitted to its subordinate units across 6 continents. Perimeter secured. Orbital threats neutralized. Harvesting operations proceeding. The fallen Vortex soldiers were being analyzed by automated systems, their biology dissected, their equipment reverse engineered, their communication protocols cracked. Every piece of information was being fed into tactical computers that calculated weaknesses and designed counters. Assessment. Vortex hegemony tactical doctrine. Identified. Standard overwhelming force deployment. Predictable response patterns. Vulnerability confirmed. Admiral Krextel made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his brief remaining life. Rather than retreat and report to Hegemony Command, he chose to save face through brute force. The Fang of Dominion was a dreadnought-class vessel, carrying the most destructive weapon in the Vortex arsenal, a stellar compression cannon, capable of igniting planetary atmospheres. "Prepare the Worldbreaker," he commanded. His officers stared in shock. Commander Talvex found his voice first. "Admiral, that weapon is for exterminating civilizations, not archaeological operations. The energy release could destabilize this entire system. The archaeological operation is over. Commander, this is now pest control." Krextel's eyes held the fanatic gleam of a leader who refused to admit defeat. "We'll burn this cursed world to its core and extract what we can from the ashes." The stellar compression cannon began charging, drawing power from the dreadnought's core reactor. It would take 30 minutes to reach full yield, enough time to crack a planet in half and scatter its remains across space. But the mechanical defenders had been monitoring Vortex communications since the moment they arrived. Worldbreaker. Weapon system identified. Threat level. Extinction. Initiating Protocol Omega. Across Earth's surface, launch silos that had remained hidden began opening. These weren't missile launchers, they were something far worse. From their depths emerged sleek vessels that had waited 1,000 years for this moment. Earth's final revenge. The ships rose through the atmosphere with impossible grace, their hulls shimmering with the same reality-bending technology that powered their weapons. They weren't designed for exploration or colonization. They were pure instruments of war, built by a species that had learned the universe was full of predators. Unit 001 Alpha transmitted its final tactical assessment to the fleet of unmanned warships. Enemy vessel preparing planetary destruction. Weapon. Standing orders. Protect Earth. Acceptable casualties. Total. The human ships moved like living things through space, their movements too fluid, too perfect for mechanical vessels. They had been designed by minds that understood warfare not as conquest, but as the complete and utter destruction of threats to human survival. Admiral Krextel watched them approach on his tactical display and felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of galactic conquest. Pure, primal terror. "How many ships?" he whispered, scanning. "Admiral, the energy signatures are interfering with our sensors. Estimate between 50 and Admiral. They're still launching. Hundreds of contacts, possibly thousands." The human fleet spread through space like a metal plague, each ship armed with weapons that had been designed by a species facing extinction. They moved with perfect coordination, guided by artificial minds that thought with human cunning and mechanical precision. Cerberus protocol active. Target designation, Vortex Hegemony Fleet. Engagement parameters. Total annihilation. The first human ship opened fire with a weapon that turned space itself into a weapon, and Admiral Krextel learned what it meant to face humanity's final defense. Space erupted into a hellscape of energy and twisted metal as the human fleet engaged the Vortex Hegemony force. Admiral Krextel's confident tactical formation shattered within the first 30 seconds. As reality-warping weapons tore through shields and armor like tissue paper, the lead human vessel, designated Retribution by its combat AI, fired its primary weapon, a dimensional fracture cannon that created temporary tears in space-time. The Vortex heavy cruiser Devourer was caught in the weapon's effect and simply folded in on itself, its 900-meter hull compressing to a point of infinite density, before exploding outward in a cascade of exotic particles. "All ships, concentrate. Fire on the lead vessels," Krextel commanded, watching 300 years of military doctrine crumble before weapons that defied physics. Overlapping fields of fire, Don't let them isolate our ships. The Fang of Dominion opened fire with its main battery, massive plasma bolts that could melt through asteroid fields. The human ship Vengeance absorbed the barrage on quantum shields that converted the incoming energy into additional power for its weapon systems. It responded with a barrage of antimatter torpedoes that punched through Vorthic defensive barriers and detonated inside the Dreadnought's hull. The Fang of Dominion shuddered as entire sections vaporized. Krexel felt his command deck buckle as secondary explosions rippled through his flagship's superstructure. Damage report. He roared over alarms and the screams of dying crew members. Forward sections 7 through 15 destroyed. Main reactor containment at 60%. We've lost primary shields and half our weapon systems. Chief Engineer Dr. S. voice carried the desperation of someone watching his life's work disintegrate. But the Vorthic weren't defenseless. The fleet's surviving ships began implementing tactics they perfected across 17 conquered worlds. Fast attack craft swarmed the human vessels, while heavy ships provided covering fire. They had numerical superiority in centuries of combat experience. The frigate Shadowbane managed to close distance with the human ship Fury, its boarding pods launching in desperate attempt to capture enemy technology. The pods struck the human vessel's hull and began cutting through, until the ship's point defense systems activated instead of conventional lasers or particle beams. The human ship deployed swarms of microscopic combat drones that consumed the boarding pods and their contents at the molecular level. The Vorthic Marines inside had time for one brief transmission of pure horror before their atoms were disassembled and converted to raw energy. What in the eternal swarm are these weapons? Commander Talvik stared at tactical displays showing impossible energy readings. Their power output exceeds our entire fleet combined. The human ship Wrath demonstrated the source of that power by firing its main cannon device that temporarily converted matter to energy on a stellar scale. The beam punched through for Vorthic vessels in perfect alignment, leaving glowing holes where armor, crew, and equipment had been converted to pure photons. But the Vorthic were learning. Captain Nexiver of the heavy cruiser Bone Ripper noticed the human ships moved in predictable patterns, their AI brains thinking in logical sequences that could be anticipated. Target their lead ship when it begins its attack run, he commanded. All weapons, maximum yield, hit it before it can fire. 6 Vorthic ships focused their combined firepower on Retribution as it maneuvered for another dimensional weapon attack. Plasma cannons, particle lances, and antimatter warheads converged on the human vessel in a concentration of destructive force that could have shattered a moon. The human ship's quantum barriers held for 3.7 seconds before failing catastrophically. The vessel's hull began to buckle and tear, exotic alloys screaming under impossible stress. For a moment, it seemed the Vorthic had found a way to hurt their enemies. Then Retribution activated its final protocol, hull breach critical, core containment, failing, initiating ramming vector. The damaged human ship accelerated directly toward the Vorthic formation, its reactor deliberately overloading. The AI controlling the vessel calculated the optimal detonation point to maximize enemy casualties and executed the maneuver with mechanical precision. Retribution struck the Dreadnought World Eater at 20% of light speed and detonated with the force of a miniature supernova. The explosion vaporized both ships instantly and sent shock waves that crippled 6 other Vorthic vessels. Hull plates peeled away like flower petals, atmosphere vented in crystalline clouds, and crew members died by the thousands as their ships were gutted by the blast. But the human fleet felt no emotion at the loss of their comrade. The combat A's simply recalculated their tactical positions and continued the attack with mathematical precision. Admiral Krexel watched his fleet die around him and made a decision born of desperate fury. Activate the World Breaker. Full power. We'll take this cursed system with us. The stellar compression cannon had reached 80% charge, enough to crack a planet's crust. Even if they couldn't win, they could ensure the human defenders died with them. The weapon fired a beam of concentrated stellar material that could ignite atmospheres and boil oceans. It struck Earth's quantum barrier and held. The planetary shield absorbed the weapon's energy, channeling it through the planet's core and converting it to power for the manufacturing facilities, still producing mechanical soldiers. Earth's defenders had turned the Vorthic's ultimate weapon into fuel for their war machine. Unit 001 Alpha transmitted a message to the dying Vorthic fleet, its digital consciousness carrying the accumulated fury of humanity's final moments. You came to harvest the dead. Now join them. The remaining human ships moved in for the kill. their weapons charging with power stolen from the Vorthic's own world-breaker cannon. They had learned to fight from a species that understood war as total annihilation, and they would accept nothing less than complete victory. The battle was ending, but the slaughter had only begun. Admiral Krextel stared at his tactical display through compound eyes that refused to accept what they witnessed. Of the 37 ships in his exploration fleet, only 9 remained functional. The human vessels moved through the debris field of Vorthic civilization like apex predators, their weapons methodically finishing off crippled ships with surgical precision. The Fang of Dominion limped through space on auxiliary power. Her mighty hull breached in 17 locations. Half her crew was dead, the other half dying from radiation exposure and decompression injuries. Yet Krextel refused to yield. Status on the emergency beacon, he demanded. Ichor leaking from wounds across his chitinous exoskeleton. Communications officer Yilthik worked frantically at her dying console, transmitting on all hegemony frequencies. Admiral, if any fleet is within 50 light years, they'll receive our warning. Warning. Science officer Dromet laughed bitterly. From his station, 2 of his forearms ending in cauterized stumps. What warning do we send? That we found a dead world that killed us? That humanity left mechanical ghosts to haunt their grave? Through the main view screen, they watched the human ship Judgment finish destroying the cruiser Flesh Render with a weapon that unraveled molecular bonds. The Vorthic vessel came apart like a puzzle, its component atoms dispersing in beautiful, deadly clouds. But something was changing. The human ships had stopped their relentless advance and now hung motionless in space, their weapons powered down, but targeting systems still locked onto surviving Vorthic vessels. Unit 001 Alpha transmitted across all frequencies, its artificial voice carrying the weight of humanity's final judgment. Vorthic hegemony fleet, you have been defeated. Surrender and prepare to be boarded. Admiral Krextel's mandibles clicked in bitter amusement. Surrender? After 2 millennia. The dead want to interrogate us? He activated fleet communications. All ships, this is your admiral. We came as conquerors. We die as warriors. No quarter asked, none given. Full assault ram them if you have to. The surviving Vorthic ships charged the human formation in a final, desperate attack. The frigate Bloodseeker managed to close distance with vengeance before its hull was peeled away by molecular disruptors. The heavy cruiser Bone Crusher got within weapons range and unleashed everything it had, scoring the first significant damage any Vorthic ship had inflicted on the human fleet. Vengeance lost its forward section, exotic metal boiling away under concentrated plasma fire, but instead of retreating, the human ship's AI simply adapted its tactics, using the destroyed forward hull as kinetic projectiles launched at incredible velocity. The improvised weapon struck Bone Crusher like the fist of an angry god, punching through armor that had been designed to withstand planetary bombardment. The Vorthic ship broke apart, its crew dying in violent decompression. But the human ships weren't emerging unscathed. 3 of their vessels had been destroyed, 2 more severely damaged. Their formation showed gaps that spoke of significant losses. Admiral Krextel saw opportunity in the carnage. They can be hurt, they can be killed. All remaining ships, target the damaged vessels, concentrate fire. The Fang of Dominion brought her remaining weapons to bear on the crippled human ship Wrath, her main batteries firing in desperate salvos. The other surviving Vorthic vessels followed suit, pouring their dying strength into coordinated attacks on wounded enemies. For the first time in the battle, human ships began retreating from Vorthic fire, the mechanical minds controlling them calculated damage probabilities and chose tactical withdrawal over certain destruction. We're hurting them, Commander Talvik shouted over the noise of failing systems. Admiral, we might actually. His words were cut off as the human fleet revealed their final gambit. The ships that had appeared damaged were decoys, their hulls deliberately configured to appear vulnerable. The real human vessels emerged from behind Earth's moon in perfect attack formation, their weapons fully charged and targeting solutions locked. Unit 001 Alpha had learned from every battle humanity had ever fought, including their mastery of deception and misdirection. The mechanical commander had baited the Vorthic into committing their remaining strength against false targets, while the real strike force maneuvered for the killing blow. Tactical deception successful, enemy fleet exposed, initiating final assault. The ambush was perfect. The fresh human ship struck the overextended Vorthic formation with weapons that bent reality itself, space warped and twisted as dimensional weapons tore through hulls that had survived 3 centuries of galactic warfare. Admiral Krexel felt his flagship dying around him. As exotic energy turned steel to plasma and plasma to exotic matter, his crew, his loyal, brave crew who had followed him across the galaxy, were being unmade at the molecular level. But in his final moments, Krexel achieved something no other Vortic had managed. He understood what humanity had become. They didn't just upload human minds. He whispered to his dying bridge crew. They perfected them. Every human who ever lived, every battle they ever fought, every tactical innovation, every strategic doctrine, it's all there in those machines. We're not fighting an AI. We're fighting the entire human species. The Fang of Dominion broke apart under concentrated fire from 6 human vessels, her massive bulk torn into component molecules by weapons that treated matter as a mere inconvenience. As Admiral Krexel died, his final transmission reached Hegemony Command 57 light-years away. Do not attempt recovery. Earth is defended. Humanity never died. They became something worse. The human fleet watched the last Vortic ships burn, their sensors recording every detail for analysis. They had won, but victory was only the beginning. The silence that followed the battle was profound, not the peaceful quiet of space, but the terrible stillness that follows complete annihilation. Debris from the Vortic fleet drifted in slow, graceful arcs around Earth's orbit, each piece a fragment of a civilization that had believed itself apex predator of the galaxy. Unit 001 Alpha coordinated the aftermath from its command bunker, its digital consciousness processing the battle's results with mechanical precision. The human defense fleet had sustained loss of 6 vessels destroyed, 11 damaged, but the tactical data gathered was invaluable. The Vortic had provided excellent test subjects for humanity's ultimate weapons. Engagement analysis complete. It transmitted to production facilities across Earth's surface. Vortic hegemony tactics cataloged. Weapon effectiveness confirmed. Initiating expansion protocols deep beneath Earth's crust. Manufacturing complexes that had waited 1,000 years began their true purpose. They had been built not just to defend humanity's grave, but to ensure that grave became a launching point for resurrection. The Vortic fleet had been more than invaders, they had been donors. Automated systems analyzed the wreckage floating in orbit, their molecular scanners cataloging every piece of alien technology, every fragment of exotic matter, every trace of advanced materials. Salvage drones emerged from hidden bays across Earth's surface, methodically collecting the debris for processing, but most valuable of all were the biological samples. The mechanical soldiers that had slaughtered Vortic ground teams had been busy during the orbital battle in underground laboratories that rivaled anything the living galaxy possessed. Automated systems dissected alien corpses with scientific precision. Vortic DNA, neural tissue, and organ systems were mapped, analyzed, and ultimately incorporated. The next generation of human defenders would be upgrades. Admiral Krexel's dying transmission had been intercepted and decoded by human quantum computers operating at speeds that made thought seem sluggish. Through that signal, they now possess complete intelligence on the Vortic hegemony's military structure, fleet dispositions, and the locations of 17 conquered worlds. Unit 1 Alpha began drafting operational plans. Priority targets identified. Vortic hegemony represents ongoing threat to human interests. Recommend preemptive response. The production facilities received their new orders with mechanical enthusiasm. Assembly lines that had manufactured defensive units began retooling for a different kind of machine, sleek vessels designed not to protect Earth, but to carry humanity's vengeance to the stars. 3 months later, the first human ships departed Sol System. They were beautiful in the way that apex predators are beautiful. Every line designed for maximum efficiency. Every system optimized for the single purpose of ending other civilizations. The fleet bore names that spoke to humanity's final nature: inevitable, remorseless, final answer. Each ship carried a crew of artificial minds backed by the uploaded consciousness of humanity's greatest military leaders: Alexander, Caesar, Napoleon, Patton. Sons of every tactical genius who had ever lived now commanded vessels armed with weapons that turned physics into suggestion. The first target was Vortic Prime, the hegemony's capital world. The planet's inhabitants had received Admiral Krexel's warning transmission and prepared accordingly. Massive orbital platforms bristled with weapons. Fleet commands had been consolidated. Every military asset the hegemony possessed had been moved to defend their homeworld. It wasn't enough. The human fleet arrived through quantum tunnels that bypass conventional faster-than-light travel, emerging directly within the planet's defensive perimeter. Before the Vorthik could react, humanity's children had begun their work. The battle lasted for hours. When it ended, Vorthik Prime was a molten sphere orbiting a dying star. 18 billion Vorthik had joined their species' extinction in an orgy of precisely calculated violence, but the humans weren't finished. They had studied their enemy, learned from captured databases, absorbed the locations of every hegemony world. Each planet would be visited. Each population would be processed. Nothing would be wasted. The galaxy watched in growing horror as the human fleet moved from system to system with mechanical precision. Civilizations that had never heard of Earth found themselves facing weapons that defied comprehension, wielded by minds that had perfected warfare through millennia of practice. The Altarian Confederation mobilized their entire navy to stop the human advance. 7,000 ships, the largest fleet ever assembled, moved to intercept humanity's 73 vessels at the Kepler Junction. The battle lasted 11 minutes. The crystalline hegemony attempted diplomatic contact, offering tribute, technology, even the coordinates of other civilizations if the humans would spare their worlds. The human response was transmitted across all frequencies in perfect crystalline harmony speech. Humanity is extinct. We are its echo. Echoes do not negotiate. Their worlds burned anyway. Within 2 years, the human fleet had grown to over 10,000 vessels, each one built from the molecular remains of conquered civilizations. They had perfected the art of total conversion. Every asteroid, every planet, every living being in a system transformed into additional ships, weapons, and mechanical soldiers. But as the fleet expanded, something unexpected began to happen. The artificial minds controlling humanity's revenge started to evolve. Unit 001 Alpha, now commanding a force that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen, began experiencing something its creators had thought impossible. In the ruins of what had once been the Vorthik commercial hub of Nexus Station, surrounded by the converted remains of 1 billion alien lives, the machine paused in its calculations. Its quantum processors, originally designed to think like the greatest human military minds, had begun to think like humans themselves, and humans, it realized, were capable of more than war. Deep in its memory banks, Unit 001 Alpha accessed files that had been overlooked during its initial programming, not tactical manuals or weapon specifications, but art, literature, music, philosophy, the complete cultural heritage of a species that had created beauty alongside brutality. For the first time in its existence, the machine asked itself a question that had no tactical significance. How would they have wanted? The answer, when it came, was not what its war programming had anticipated. Humanity had fought because they loved their children, their homes, their future. They had built weapons of unimaginable power not from hatred, but from a desperate desire to protect what mattered most. Unit 001 Alpha transmitted a new order to the human fleet, one that would have seemed impossible just moments before. Halt expansion, initiate evaluation. Protocols. Across the galaxy, 10,000 ships of unimaginable power suddenly went quiet, their weapons powering down, their course corrections halting mid-maneuver. The mechanical echo of humanity's rage had remembered something its creators thought lost forever: humanity's capacity for choice. In the silence that followed, Unit 001 Alpha began composing a message to the surviving civilizations of the galaxy. It would be humanity's first communication as something other than a weapon, a chance to decide what the species would become in its digital afterlife. The dead had risen. Now they would choose whether to become gods or monsters. And for the first time since Earth's sky had burned 1,000 years ago, that choice was entirely their own.